today with a very special video. I talk often about the value of the classic Vibe line. So today we can compare this Squier 60s Custom Esquire Classic Vibe to this Fender American Original 60s Telecaster, which is a Telecaster Custom. Not reissue, but homage. You can tell by the binding on both. The binding on the Squier is more cream, it's more white on the Fender, matter of personal taste. The colors, again, the angles with the lighting, you can't tell 100%, but trust me, in the room, these are virtually identical. That's probably a good angle there. Squier absolutely nails it in terms of the classic Fender colors, because of course the American Original is as close as you'll get to what a brand new 60s custom Telecaster in Lake Placid blue would have looked like when it was right off the line. Both have maple necks, of course, 4-bolt string through. Get them down here. This is a very nice Indian Laurel fretboard. I've said many times in terms of appearance, I think it's the best rosewood substitute, but that's an actual nice piece of rosewood. You can tell by the streaking, the tint, it's just really pretty, and the camera doesn't really do it justice. Real bone nut, synthetic bone, though some of the classic Vibes do have real bone. I actually prefer synthetic because I try to avoid animal products when possible. Both have the classic tuners, both work very well. Poly finish for the classic Vibe, nitro finish for this. As I said in the video specifically about this guitar, the American Original line is being discontinued, but right now it's the only American Fender standard production guitar you can get looking brand new with a nitro finish. And it's wonderful. I'm not one that absolutely has to have nitro, but in fact this is my first Fender with nitro. Obviously pretty much every Gibson has it, but I really like this one. It's less sticky than the Gibsons I've had in the past, but of course the poly will, if you don't want it to wear, it's the appropriate choice. Both have steel saddles, as they would have in the 60s, and not brass. I think 64 is the actual year that this one's really modeled after. Standard Esquire switching on this one, standard modern three-way switching on the Fender. Pure vintage 64 pickups, an Alnico 5 Squier pickup, which is also, I should say, the pure vintage American pickups in this one are also Alnico 5. This one's Alnico 5. These guitars really are more alike than they are different, obviously, one being an Esquire and one being a Telecaster. And what I'm going to do now, before I come back for my final thoughts, is I'm going to play some blind sound samples. Mic with an SM57, a Vox AC10, some clean sound samples, then some with the Tumnus, I believe. I'm going to use the bridge pickup to make it fair, and since on the Esquire, the first position, it bypasses the tone circuit. So to make it as even as possible, I'm going to put it in the middle position, so that would be the same as the bridge position on the Telecaster. And just to make things interesting, here is a parts caster with American Professional 2 VMod 2 electronics, including the pickups. I'm going to throw this one in the blind sample as well, just to, again, make it a little more interesting. This has, I believe it's Alnico 2 magnets for the 3 high strings, Alnico 5 for the low strings. And I won't say too much, but I don't want to give anything away, but I'll play those for you now. I will note, just so everything's clear, this is, obviously these guitars have different finishes, different woods, maple fretboard, alder body, rosewood fretboard, alder body, laurel fretboard, NATO body. So this is not necessarily a shootout of the pickups. I just thought it would be interesting to see what these different Telecaster slash Esquire guitars sounded like. So right now I will play you the blind sound samples, then we will come back. We'll let you know which was which and give you my final thoughts. Okay, I hope that you enjoyed those samples. So with no further ado, I will tell you which guitar is which, so make your final guesses. So guitar 1 was the American Original Telecaster. Guitar 2 was the Squier Esquire. And guitar 3 was my mostly American parts caster with the V-Mod 2 pickups. So notes, this guitar I thought was the hottest, the most modern sounding. The Casino Guitars channel compared the V-Mod pickups to the Texas Specials. I wouldn't go quite that far in terms of output. In fact, I think they're about in the middle between the Texas Special and the more vintage outputs. But this is a great sound, might be my favorite sound, if I'm being honest, of the three. I've only had this guitar for not even 2 weeks, so I'm still, in fact it's been a week today, still getting to know it, but I love the way this guitar sounds. But this was number 3. Again, a little bit hotter, a little more output. To my ear, a little more mid-range. And again, we're just going by the bridge pickup. Now, I should note this has brass saddles where the other two have steel. So in terms of the Squire, I thought it sounded fantastic. And I thought it really does hold its own with the other two, especially in terms of the character of the sound, since they're both Alnico 5s, the American original. It sounded great. I've used this to record with, and listening to it, in fact, my biggest takeaway is how close this sounds to the others, again, especially this one, because they're intended to be voiced more similarly. But that said, for the classic Telecaster sound, this is still the best you can get. This has all the good qualities of the Squire, but just more is probably the best way I can put it. I should add that this has staggered pull pieces. It's flat on the V-mods and raised but not staggered on the Squire. If you're looking for a classic Telecaster sound, a truly classic sound, the Pure Vintage 64 is about as good as it gets. I'll also say, in fairness, I love the way the V-mod neck sounds, but I probably like this one a little bit better. Now, again, it's what you're looking for. For classic Telecaster sounds, I think that this specific guitar is the best you can do, short of going to the custom shop. This is an amazing approximation. And if you're looking for a little bit hotter Telecaster sound, but still in the vintage realm, the V-Mod 2 pickups are probably the way to go. And again, better or worse, it's subjective. I will say I think that this, since these two are intended to do the same thing, I think this sounds very slightly better. But keeping in mind this costs over 4 times as much as this, doesn't sound that much better. And let me say too that I love hot-rodded Telecaster sounds for lead, which is why my favorite guitar of all time has a Seymour Duncan hot rails in the bridge, and the one I probably played second most in recent years has a Seymour Duncan hot lead. So I love the way all these guitars sound, but if you're looking for a hotter Telecaster sound, there's definitely pickups you can install to upgrade. Of course, I also have a Joe Barden, and that sounds fantastic, but again, for traditional Telecaster sound, you can't beat this, in my opinion. So bring it down to the comparison. Having, again, owned this guitar for a week and this one for over a year now, the main thing I can say is my opinion of the classic vibes might be higher than ever. They are just amazing guitars for the money. And to echo what Something Casino Guitars said recently, basically, I think that if you want a vintage style guitar, if you want to go all out and you have the money, splurge, sell several guitars like I did to get this one. Yeah, this is, for me, I'm not sure if I'll ever, as much as I love playing, unless I had a financial windfall, I don't see me getting a custom shop. This is a once-in-a-lifetime dream guitar for me. But in terms of wanting a great vintage style, Fender style guitar, I still think the classic vibes can't be beat. I have that classic vibe Jazzmaster you may have seen recently, and I was just talking to people at one of my local music stores. As someone who loves having a Jazzmaster but can't imagine it being my #1 guitar, that's probably all the Jazzmaster I will ever need. You've probably seen my Lake Placid Blue 60 Strat, which I love and have not modified one bit. Do I like my American Standard Strat better? Yes. But do I think that it's necessarily, keeping in mind that guitar is 10 years old, and this doesn't account for inflation, but even with that, it's not twice as good as that 60s Squire. And just like this, again, $480. I got this one used but new, $21.50. Is this guitar 4 to 5 times better than this one? Absolutely no way. Is this guitar 90% as good as the Fender? It is. One other thing I should note, this has the 60s C neck, so it's a little more substantial neck. This has a very slim neck. That's just a matter of taste. I typically prefer the classic vibe necks over almost anything, but this neck shape is just fantastic. It's, again, a little more substantial. I know you can't tell from looking on this camera, but it's just such a great shape. I just love it. It might be of current guitars, my favorite neck shape I've played in recent years. The argument for this guitar is it's the rule of diminishing returns. To get that last 10%, it takes a lot of time and a lot of money. Phil McKnight talked about how in the Paul Reed Smith American factory, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but something like his friend who works there said they buff the S2 line for something like 35 minutes. The final buffing per guitar is something like an hour and 15 minutes. And those exact numbers might be off, but it's something like that. It takes time to get that last 10%. Even though this wasn't entirely brand new, other than a couple of little places, it was in fantastic shape. There's just a special quality to the fit and finish on a guitar of this caliber that you just can't get at lower price points. But that is a luxury. There's never been a thing wrong with this wonderful guitar. And again, I actually think more highly of it owning this one, because even though this one's 10% better, it's 10% better for over $1,500 more. But again, if you want the ultimate experience, you're going to have to pay for it, because it's that extra labor in particular that goes into the buffing, the polishing the frets, the dressing the fret ends, that you just can't get that on a mass produced guitar like this compared to this one. And again, that's in no way a criticism of this. I liked everything about this guitar out of the box. If you go back, I'll link my video review to this. But again, like little qualities, the details in the sound, the cloth wire, the CTS pots, the feel, the switches, feels perfectly fine on the Squire, but just something special about this. So, but that said, I will probably buy more classic vibes in the future, and I'm not sure if I will ever spend this much on another Fender. Of course, given inflation, who knows, but I'm already thinking about it. I'd love to have a authentic Kunafe wide range humbucker now that they're back, but I don't want to pay $2,000 for another American original, which is the only guitar that comes into the production line. But buy a classic vibe. They're on sale at this very moment at Sweetwater for something like 400 some, 200 some for the pickup. For $600, you have a guitar that's probably 95% as good, and it has the 4-bolt neck instead of the 3. Just throwing that out there in case that matters. I've never had a 3-bolt neck, but I digress. But again, this is just such a beautiful guitar. But again, turn around this way, can't see the headstock. Couldn't tell which was which. So I'm very glad I got this one. I will hope to always have it, always cherish it. I've already recorded with it. But again, on a budget, or even not on a budget, even if practically speaking, I say this, I own like 8 Telecasters in my 20 years of playing, and probably at the moment 4 or 5 Strat style guitars, 5 or 6 now that I think about it. If you were just looking to get a good rig and you had $2,000 to spend, you could get this, or you could get this and a great amp and some great pedals. So again, for actual playing, gigging, everyday life, I think this is impossible to beat. For a special sell 4 guitars, once in a lifetime dream, I mean, this is definitely better. There's no doubt about it. But again, and let me say too, that real quick, because again, this is a parts caster with elements of a Ventera, an American Performer, and American Professional. These are both the Squire and the American Original vintage type guitars. The American Performer and American Professional lines, if you're looking for something a little more modern, basically a high-end gigging guitar, that might be the way to go. Because there's still a couple little things I need to add about this, that though they don't have the vintage 7 1/4 radius and the smaller frets, they do have the truss rod access in the heel. as opposed to both the American Performer and the American Professional. This is an American Performer neck and the Classic Vibe. Also, though it doesn't apply to the Esquire, you know, you got your nice pickup adjusting screws here. To adjust the pickups on this guitar, you have to take the pick guard off, which after playing it for a few days, I decided I needed to raise it a little bit, the net pickup. I had to take the pick guard off. Those are just some small inconveniences that you have to suffer in order to have a more vintage correct instrument. So if you were looking for a high-end gigging, truly professional musician level guitar, something more like the one that this is made out of, because again this is a parts caster, but again Performer neck, American Professional 2 electronics, and then a Ventera body, which is alder just like it would be in those other lines. So, and many of you probably already know that, but I think it's good sometimes to, because I know I enjoy it, seeing videos by people like me who are passionate about these things but don't have the budgets or the big studios, again, like I always try to abide by, not playing too loud to bother my neighbors even when I'm recording. And hearing opinions from somebody like me, I might not know as much or play as well as, say, Danish Pete or Phil McKnight, but I think it's helpful to get a perspective, and I try to seek those out as well from normal people, so to speak. So I hope that you all have enjoyed this video. I hope it's been helpful. And if you have any questions, comment below. Please like and subscribe. And until next time, keep on rocking.